Anytime I've gotten to the other side of the scariest moments in my life, it was like it, I'm playing Candyland with my 3-year old like every day, 9 times a day right now. And, as you navigate Candyland, you go through all these things and it's like Lollipop Lane, right? And you go to this other one and it's, licorice. But you get all the way up to the top before you go to the candy castle and win, and it's like this it's like Chocolate Mountain, right? And every time I see that Chocolate Mountain, I'm always like, you had to get through all of these wines and whirls and go through all this stuff, and then once you get to that top of Chocolate Mountain and you come over the other side, you see the castle and you win, right? And I think about that with life. I'm like, okay, whatever you're going through here in these windy roads and you're leading all the way up to it, like it's scary, it's hard, it takes effort. It's not this perfect path. Like you could get, the lollipop card when you turn the lollipop, and the lollipop, could be back here and it brings you back, right? And you're like, dang, I was almost at the Chocolate Mountain, right? Welcome to the Impact Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Morris, and we have another amazing guest in the house, Quinna Oceanna Water. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about impact. We're going to talk about life, business, all the things. So please help me welcome Quinna to the Impact Effect Podcast.
Thank you so much.
I am fired up. And as always, we ask every single guest, what is the most impactful moment in your life that changed everything for your future?
I love that you start with that question. It's so relevant. And I would have to say that I had a really massive turning point moment about 11 years ago that was a realization. It hit me like a wave. And I realized that I needed to find someone to support me and to point out my blind spots. It was like I don't know what I don't know kind of a realization that hit me in a way that had never landed in that way before. And from that realization, I made the decision that I was going to find that support. And I really made that commitment to myself. And that changed my entire life so drastically because I found that person. And they gave me the tools and the support over the last 10 years that has really enabled me to more fully take up space in my world. I don't know how else to say it. Like it helped me to become aware of the patterns that I was having in my life that are still happening in different ways that I now can see clearly and have the choice whether I want to keep on engaging with them, as well as like boundaries, putting in place boundaries and just so many different components of becoming who we are meant to be, who we are made to be, what we're here to do, stepping into claiming our voice more powerfully.
Let's go. I told y'all it was going to be some heat today. Where did you get that download, or where do you think that came from? Like all of a sudden it just got you? Like where do you think that was derived from?
Well, actually, I love that you asked that because I was at a birth at the time. I was actually 16 years old and I was a doula. I was studying to be a doula. And this was one of the first births that I was at as a doula. And we were about 24 hours in to the birth process. As many of you likely know, it can be quite the experience. And me and the two midwives, it was a home birth. We were sitting on the porch and we were just chatting about life and about experiences that we have that shape us. And there was something about having these two women, these strong, powerful women who just had so much wisdom and had so much capacity to hold space for this birthing of the next, season of this woman's life, that just made me feel like this draw and this desire. Like I need someone who has that capacity, who can help me see and support me through the process of what's coming next. Because I didn't know what was coming next, but I could feel that I wanted more. I wanted more out of my life than the people that I was around in a lot of cases. And especially at 16, you know, a lot of my friends weren't exactly shooting for the stars. And so, but I really wanted more. And so I knew that I needed to be around people who also wanted more and who could see in me that there was more and could help me to kind of navigate that becoming, so to speak.
16 this happened.
Yeah.
Like that is absolutely amazing. I wish I was doing that shit at 16.
I know. I feel so lucky, like that I started just being so committed to personal development at that time, because a lot can happen
Totally.
in 10 years, and 10 years goes by really fast. Like I can't even believe that that was 10 years ago, 11.
Talking about the birthing of a new human into the world, and then you making a decision that potentially births you into a different chapter. There's a lot of uniqueness in that, and some congruence, I would assume. It's interesting because I think in those moments something special is happening, right? You're bringing a life into the world. You're around these women who have done this probably multiple times over and over, and they have these experiences, and they're around this new energy that's coming into our realm and our existence and our atmosphere. Both of my kids were born at home, and the woman, same woman, birthed both of them, and it is a different energy when you're around that woman, and it is a different experience because it's not your average experience, and it's a big moment, right? And especially, you know, when you're it's at night and you're up late and you don't your lack of sleep, and you got all these different factors happening and occurring, but yet this beautiful moment exists. So as you were saying that, you're bringing me back to those moments. I'm trying not to get emotional here thinking about it. 16 years old, that happened. Who was the person that you found to bring you to the next level of your life and navigate these moments going forward?
Yeah. So she's my mentor, but she also is a practitioner. She's a craniosacral practitioner. So it was a combination of somatic healing work and guidance, like life guidance. She doesn't call herself a coach, but that's kind of what she is, but she is so much more than that as well, right? Like there's so many different levels that she brings. And honestly, working with her helped me to understand the importance of that somatic component as well, right? Because a lot of what we experience and do in the world is through our body. And so the more that our relationship with our body is clear and whole and healed, then the more powerfully that we can operate in the world and the more impact that we can have in a more intentional way. And yeah, and she had been working with somebody that I was very close to at the time who recommended me. And she didn't say much about it. She was just like, this is my mentor and she's changed my life. I'm like, okay, I'm interested.
Sold to the highest bidder. Yeah. At that time, 16, I'm sure a lot of things going on. Like was your nervous system out of whack? Like, were you going through anything like that she really helped with? Or was this something where you were just like, hey, I don't want to be in this proximity and I need someone to help me be the best version of myself?
So I had a very unconventional life growing up. I grew up in a very rural area, in a school bus, off grid, and my surroundings were
Like a school bus converted to a
Yes.
home?
Yes.
Like in the middle of the woods?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't have, like electricity. We had candles at night, and we didn't have an indoor, bathroom and just all of that. So it was just really, really different lifestyle growing up. And with that comes a lot of different things, obviously. But I always had like a very worldly desire. Like I wanted to see the world and do a lot of different things. but I could tell that there was a lot in me that needed healing. So it did stem from, okay, I can tell that my nervous system is not regulated and I need to feel safe in my body in order to do what I'm here to do. But as a 16-year-old, I'm not sure I exactly knew 100%. It was more of like I know that I'm capable of more, but I'm overwhelmed, or it's hard to fully articulate because at 16, I was a powerhouse. Like, I was a doula. I had already been working as a nanny and I had graduated high school at 16.
Wow.
With all of, like I skipped third grade. I graduated with everything. It wasn't like I just got a GED, I think is what it's called. But yeah, so like there was just, I bought my ticket to Europe at 16 and traveled there for 3 months by myself. Like, just so there was so much that I was doing already. And I just knew that I couldn't do it by myself, that what I wanted, I couldn't do by myself. And there was some, there was like some specific things that were going on at that time, but I don't want to get too much into that because it's a long story.
Yeah, totally, totally. So, how'd you get to Nashville?
Well, I came to Nashville about 8 months ago, and it's so funny because it was a really spontaneous decision, actually. Me and my husband were trying to decide where we wanted to move. We'd been just thinking like, okay, we want to be in a new space and in a new environment, and we were considering different places. And then, so funny, I actually watched this show, Marriage versus Mortgage. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a live reality TV show.
I know the house. I know the house in the show that's in Nashville. Yes, yes.
Exactly. So it's based in Nashville, and it just showcases like some of the best food, the best, houses, the best wedding venues, all of these epic, beautiful places here. And I was just sold. And basically the next week we just packed up our car and drove over.
Let's go. Let's go.
Like, we're young, we can be spontaneous, and it's been amazing.
If you did Europe at 16, I think you could drive over to Nashville.
Exactly.
So you've lived a very unique life.
I have. Ain't no doubt about that.
What would you share with someone based on what you've experienced in life so far? Like it's not, conventional, right? Like you said, you grew up in a school bus, no electricity, no bathroom. You went to Europe at 16. You were a nanny. You were a doula. And you're here now in Nashville. You're working with people. You were just speaking on a stage. Like, what advice do you have for someone who might not think that they're living a conventional life, may have limitations in their own mindset? Like, how would you help that person, or what would you share with that person?
Do we have all night? I think the first thing is just that, what if it is possible? I think we can stop ourselves from even desiring before we even connect to our desire, because of all these limitations of our mind of what if we're asking for too much, or what if it doesn't happen, or what if I get hurt, or, we have so many things that actually shut us down before we even get into the feeling of fully embodying what we're desiring. And so what if you just shifted the script and instead you said, well, what if that was possible? I think the more that you connect with what you really want, what you really desire, and then take action towards that, you might be surprised at what is possible and that what does line up for you. And the other thing is, support is important. And doing it alone, you can, but it's not going to be the same, and you're not going to have that feeling of fulfillment in the same way. And so I think, we need to release this whole entire story around, like, what is it? What is the word that people use? It's like self-made. Like, what is that? That's delusional. We're all God-made, right? Like, we're all here. There's more to it. And the more that we can connect to that divinity and to that connection that we have with each other, the reflections that we give each other are what amplify us and give us purpose. And, it's funny because I actually wrote a book report I think it was in 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade, on what is the meaning of life. That was the question. And so I went around and I interviewed people, and at the end, my answer was connection. And so it's quite interesting that we're here sitting at this table because you're the connection guy. And so, like at our core, we need connection. And so when we have that support and we have that community, it enables us to be more than we could ever be alone.
Totally. We talk about like power in numbers when we think of like bad things, right? Like war, we have more people to fight a war than you, or we have more weapons, or right. And we think of like power in numbers to beat other people, to succeed over them, to, win and they lose. And it's like, what if we thought about power in numbers where everybody wins, everybody gets better, everybody rises? And when I start to think about those things, I'm like, it's this programming that we've had year over year and on TV and in movies and all these things that make it seem like the person who wins in life is the person who doesn't need help, doesn't need anybody, that doesn't need to be honest or real or vulnerable, that just kind of like goes through life and hits their chest and rah, 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 I'm gonna break through the wall. You ever try running into a wall? It freaking hurts. And guess what, folks? 90% of the time, you don't break through it when you run right into it. What if Quinna was there with me and she was like, hey, Jim, let me give you a hand and you can climb over the wall and it doesn't hurt. And then when you're up on top, you can reach your hand down and pull me up and I can come over the wall with you. Like, imagine if we looked at everything like that in life.
Exactly.
When I hear your story, when I hear where you started when you were younger and how you found your mentor and how you've been spontaneous and you've been adventurous and you've done all these amazing things, was there a time where you were in fear to take the next step forward, when you were in fear to go towards those desires that you had?
100%. Of course, I think fear is a natural part of life, right? I mean, for example, traveling around Europe at 16 it's scary. It's daunting. And, even just getting in front of people and sharing what's on my heart can be scary. And I think over time, you start to realize that fear can actually be a guide, because sometimes the things that we are meant to do are the scariest. It's much easier to stay hidden, to stay comfortable. And there have certainly been times where I'd rather do that. But that's not what I want long term. And so taking that consistent action towards, okay, it's scary now, but it's not going to be as scary next time. And maybe this fear is information because it's guiding me into the direction that I need to go.
Yeah, anytime I've gotten to the other side of the scariest moments in my life, it was like I'm playing Candyland with my 3-year-old like every day, 9 times a day right now. And, as you navigate Candyland, you go through all these things and it's like Lollipop Lane, right? And you go to this other one and it's, licorice. But you get all the way up to the top before, you go to the candy castle and win. And it's like this, it's like Chocolate Mountain, right? And every time I see that Chocolate Mountain, I'm always like, you had to get through all of these wines and whirls and go through all this stuff. And then once you get to that top of Chocolate Mountain and you come over the other side, you see the castle and you win, right? And I think about that with life. I'm like, okay, whatever you're going through here and these windy roads and you're leading all the way up to it, like it's scary, it's hard, it takes effort. It's not this perfect path. Like you could get, the lollipop card when you turn the lollipop, and the lollipop, could be back here and it brings you back, right? And you're like, dang, I was almost at the Chocolate Mountain, right? I can't believe I'm giving a Candyland analogy right now on this podcast, but it's so real and true. And I'm like, man, this is hitting hard. But like, right, you go back and you're, oh dang, I got the lollipop and I was way up here. But then you just keep going and it's like, all right, once you get over that chocolate mountain, it's like, all right, you're gonna win or you're close to win. And anytime in life I've been faced with getting to the top of that mountain and to the other side, it's like those best magical moments where it was all worth it. Every time it was worth it. Is there a moment in your life where you had to go up the mountain and struggle through it and get to the top, but when you went to the other side, it was worth it?
100%. I mean, even just with finding the right mentor, honestly, like that was a fiasco. Like the
Tell
first,
me more. Tell me
oh my
more.
God, the first two, so I was initially looking for a therapist. Okay. So I started interviewing, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to shop around and see what's around town. And
You
good
mean
Lord.
you wanted to make sure the person getting in your mind and in your thoughts was the right person? Yeah.
Exactly. I needed to vet them. And good thing I did, because the first woman that I met with, oh gosh, it's so sad, honestly, to look back, because this was one of the first times that I had like really looked for support. And I was pretty bold in sharing, like, okay, this is what's happened to me and I need support as I navigate healing from this. And this woman basically told me that my brain wasn't quite developed and that she really wanted to tell me her life story, and that she was really confused about how to move forward because I was really mature and she didn't really know how to deal with it. And now she knows that she shouldn't be telling me her life trauma. But I was just like, what is happening here? Like, and
I came to you for help, lady.
exactly. And she was just starting out, so I get that. But I have always been a very hard, like strong-willed, like people were intimidated by me, and I would walk into a room and I would just look at you. And a lot of adults, when they're dealing with a 16-year-old girl who's like, what do you have to say, and make it matter? Like, and so I think there was an element of just like intimidation around there. And then the second woman that I went to, so I left and I was just like, what just happened? Like that was, it was horrible, honestly. And then the next woman that I went to, I think I'd shared something that had happened growing up. She was like, oh, I need to call like the authorities and da 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 da. I'm like, that was like 8 years ago. Like, what are you even talking about? This is why I never went to therapy before. There was just like these different things. And so when I found the one, I was like, whew, that was worth, it was worth going through like the experience of knowing that you're the one, right? Like when you know that it's not the one, and then you know that it is the one, there's a very clear, but yeah, I think like sharing yourself vulnerably, it's really scary. And it's worth it when you have an intention of where you're going, and then you can be able to see, okay, that wasn't the one, and not get like pulled off your feet from it. Because some people would have gone to one and just, okay, that's it, that's not for me, right? But I think being able to say, okay, that one wasn't for me, but that doesn't mean that I don't still need support in the way that I need support.
It's admirable. It's very admirable to hear that. And especially at such a young age, I think that that's something that is a great skill of yours to continue to push forward. And I think not a lot of people have that early on. And I think not a lot of people even have that today as an adult or in different chapters of their life. When I think about that story and I think about your persistence to continue to move forward, it's almost like you knew how important it was to find that support. Fast forward to now, you're providing support for others in a way. Tell me a little bit more about that and why you do some of that work.
Well, this is like that. Some of that story and that transformation is exactly why I do what I do. And it's interesting, that we started talking about the doula stuff, because in a way, I actively support women to birth aspects of themselves and their businesses. And so it does feel full circle in that way, because bringing something to life like that's on your heart, it's vulnerable, it's scary, and you have to breathe through it. And you have to ride the wave, so to speak, right? Because sometimes you just want to get back in bed and you want to give up and you want to, you want to numb out from that birth process because it hurts, it's scary, it's vulnerable, you're completely exposed, right? There's so much congruence between, growing a business, being a human, and birthing life, right? Like it all,
Totally.
it's all so connected. And so throughout my experience of becoming, like, taking up more space in my life and seeing that and understanding that I have something to share with the world that's only mine, and then being able to share that with other women and other people around me to say, hey, what you have to say is important and no one else can say it like you, and then actually give you a roadmap to make it realistic in your life and to make it embodiment, right? Because we can learn all we want, but until we actually implement it and embody it, it's just information in our heads. And so I think bridging that experience of working with my mentor, of having the somatic component and then having the deeper level of support and, like investigation and, asking the questions and understanding that I actually have all the answers inside of me. I think that's an important core that we all need to reconnect with, because we can often outsource our power, and that is not what I'm about. We need to reconnect because we have all the answers. We have access to all the answers inside of us, and we just need to clear out that channel, right? That's all full of all these things, that we've picked up over the years. And also connecting with a lot of what I learned, not only when I went to school for counseling, but also from my mentor around our subconscious mind and our neural pathways and the way that our brains work. And we have these neural pathways that are like super highways, and we find ourselves in these old loops and these old patterns before we even know what happened, because they're so deeply ingrained, right? And we wake up, it's like we wake up and we're like, why am I in the middle of doing this? I decided I wasn't going to do this anymore, right? But once we learn that that's what's happening and it's just a part of our brain, and then we have the tools to say, oh, actually, this is how I interrupt that pattern, and this is how I start stepping into a new part of myself, a new identity that I'm creating every moment that I think these new thoughts and, hold myself differently and show up in the way that I know that I'm made to show up. Like, those are the moments that create who we're becoming. And the more that I can set that example and support women to arrive and be in the process of like claiming themselves more fully and bringing their visions to life and not allowing it to overwhelm them, right? Because that's the thing with big visions and big dreams, is sometimes they feel so big. How do you even start? Like, how do you even take the first step? It can put us into this fight, flight, freeze, fawn response where we're so shut down because it's so overwhelming. And so being able to just put it into bite-sized pieces where we're like, okay, this is just the next thing. It's just this one thing. And then once you do that one thing, the next thing opens, right? And just having that consistent clarity of stay in alignment, you ask for the answers, they come. Like, we overcomplicate things. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. It can be very, very straightforward and simple when we come back to our foundation.
I love it. I couldn't agree more with like everything you've said. You're such an intelligent woman. Like you're very, I was going to say unique, but it's not unique because you've lived it, you've done it, and now you're helping others do it. And as you were saying all this stuff, I'm like, she said identity. And it had me thinking back of like changing those neural pathways. I remember when I stopped drinking, right? 3.5 years ago. And I was like, I don't drink. I'm not someone who drinks. I don't consume alcohol. That's not my identity anymore. Mm-hmm. And it was, I'm going to stop drinking. And the next day, done. Yeah. Right. And I drank from 14 to 20 or to 33. Yeah. Right. So like years of drinking, years and years and years. And one day was just like, I'm done. Yeah. But I had to change my identity. Mm-hmm. I had to wake up the next day and say, I'm someone who doesn't drink. And I had to fight through that. And then all of a sudden it was just like, boom, done. And I think it doesn't have to be substance abuse. It doesn't have to be anything like that. And I love how you said, like, it's those things that you need to change in your neural pathways, because it could be any habit. It could be anything that you decide, or all of a sudden, like you're saying, like all of a sudden it's like, I didn't want to be doing that. Why am I doing that again? And it's like, well, until you change those things, until you recognize that you're doing it, how can you even change it in the first place?
Exactly. Yeah. And, I always used to say like awareness is the key. And I do agree with that. But I think awareness is the first step and action is the key. Because until you actually begin to catch those thoughts, or, like I know in the beginning when I was first learning about this stuff, and I would find myself in the middle of a pattern that I wasn't about anymore. And it was so painful. It was so frustrating just to be in that place again. Like, I already decided I didn't want to do that anymore. Why am I saying yes when I mean no? Or whatever it is, right? And then,
What's a pattern that you caught yourself in that frustrated you
well,
before?
just, saying yes when I mean no in particular. Like,
Those boundaries you were talking about.
exactly, because like there was times when I was over giving in my life a lot. I was caretaking people around me that I shouldn't have been. And I had so many relationships that I was over giving in. And when I was in counseling school, they had this whole analogy. It was like, you each have 100% and you meet at the 50% line, right? And if you start giving 60%, then the other person, they give 40. And that's a dynamic that you guys both create. And so when you're always in the position of giving 70, or you're in the position of giving 40, and you're always expecting your partner to, like, you need to do 100% of your 50, and anything more than that, that is that is like a codependent dynamic, right? You guys are both creating it. And I think understanding that, okay, I might be over giving, but it's not on them for overtaking. It's on me for not understanding what my capacity is, or for being afraid that they're not going to want to hear no, which duh. Nobody wants to hear no when, you're getting all this extra, like, right?
Keep pouring it on, baby. Keep pouring it on. I like that.
So of course there's going to be, a pushback when you start putting in place boundaries and you start saying, oh, actually, I'm not okay with you being late, or whatever the boundaries are. Like, my time is valuable, and this and this and this. And you start, valuing yourself differently. You have different standards, you set different boundaries, and people are like, screw you, and that can be really scary, right? You lose friends, you leave people behind because you're not willing to negotiate your worth anymore. Right. And yeah. And so I think that, like, the process of realizing, oh, wait, like, why did I reach out and perpetuate that dynamic, even when I know that that's not for me anymore, right? Like, I had dynamics where I had friendships where I was the one who was always giving and always reaching out and always, I was just doing more than my part. And then at a certain point, it's like, wait, why doesn't that person ever check back on me? Or like, why am I, and then there was like, okay, stop reaching out. Just stop, right? Let them meet you halfway. And sometimes they just can't, because it's already, it's the dynamic, and you kind of have to move forward. But it's interesting how until you heal that pattern, you will continue to attract that person, right? And it's not like, the thing is we can get into this victim mentality. Oh, all the people, they're not there for me. Like, nobody's, or this whole theory around relationships. Oh, the fish in the pond, they're not good enough. There's not enough options. That is just a bunch of baloney, right? Because in truth, we attract what we focus on. And we get what we put out. And so the more that we can heal ourselves, and the more that we can become aware of our own patterns and actually grow those and put in place new patterns that are going to actually take us where we want to go, right? They're stepping stones, these habits that we put in place. Then we start realizing that we design our lives, and nobody ain't to blame but ourselves if we aren't living the life that we most want to be living.
It's funny you brought up the relationship thing, because there's someone in my life who, she's always like, oh, men are this, men are that, men are this, this and that. And I'm looking around and I'm like, every single one of your friends is married to a man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're all happy, because I don't know them at that depth of a level, but none of them are divorced right now. None of them are posting on Facebook that they hate their life and they hate their husband. So like, I find it a little bit odd that you're the only one out of this group of women that I know that think men are terrible and they're awful and all this stuff. And it's like, well, of course you're single. Like, because you're not even open and allowing someone to even come into your world, let alone be nice to you because of all the shit you've talked. And you're talking shit online about men, and they go to your Instagram, and it's like, I don't want to be around her. Like, who wants to be welcomed into that relationship when your last 3 reels are talking about how shitty of a men are in your life? And it's like, and then even when she's come over to our house and we have dinner, and she's making these statements,
You're like, I'm a man, excuse me.
she's just making these statements, and I'm like, is she trying to like position me as this type of person?
Terrible.
Because like my wife's happy,
Yeah.
like she doesn't believe in this shit, you know what I mean? And it's just, and if she wasn't, I know my wife, she'd tell me, number one, and number two, she'd probably tell her too. So like that's not the truth. But it's funny because it's like, yeah, you're not going to find a man when you act like that, because that's what you're attracting. And also you're repelling the nice guy who wants to just love on you and get love back and be in those situations, you know? I just find it very interesting. And you know, just back to relationships, like when I met Caitlin, my wife, she, you know, we weren't looking for love. Neither of us. We were kind of just like done with it, like from bad relationships. Yeah. Right. And, but it was so honest and real and just kind of like open of like, we're not like, I don't hate women and she doesn't hate men, but it was just kind of like whatever happens, happens. And then all of a sudden you fall in love, and now we've got 2 kids and, you know, you're married for several years. And it's like, I think back on that situation and I'm like, okay, before that, I was trying to force it. Before that, I was like trying to find my wife and wanting a wife. And when you just kind of like open up and just be you and just be honest and just be real, and you're just kind of going with the flow, it's like, wow, that's when magic can happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And we take the pressure off of ourselves, and then we, you know, we can be ourselves more fully. And that's when we attract.
What let's end the plane here, because I've been trying to think of this question. It just came to me right now. Talking about identity, talking about attracting, like you just said, like what identity did you have to take to attract the things that you wanted and wished on and love in life today?
I love that you asked that question, because identity work is a big part of what I'm about. And I did have to actively try on different identities, because the identity of I'm a small town girl wasn't going to take me where I wanted to go. And so I had to put on my business identity and try out different ways of, you know, I'm a boss woman. Like I make millions. I stand in power. I'm unafraid to share my truth and share my gifts. And I am who I am meant to be. And that is exactly right. And that is enough. And I think claiming that identity of like choosing yourself, for one, is really important, and choosing to belong here, right? Because many of us can get stuck in this whole like, I don't fit in and nobody gets me. And what if you belong because you choose to belong? And what if that's what it is, right? We overcomplicate life. It's a moment. We're here for a moment. So the more fully that we can be here, be present, share our gifts, get out of our own way. Like the other thing is that we're too self-absorbed. Like I was so concerned about what people would think about me, right? About, you know, when I pivoted or when I started doing this or when I started doing that. And I was so concerned about how I would be perceived. And then at a certain point, I realized like nobody even like, we are so critical of ourselves, but we're living our lives. We have to, you know, decide what our legacy is going to be. We have to decide now, because tomorrow is an illusion. It's not guaranteed. And so the more that we can just say, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be? And how can I bridge that gap in this moment?
Woo! Come on, Quinna, let's go. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for speaking at my last event. It was just such a powerful moment, and I had so much great feedback from folks. And I'm grateful to have you on the show, and I'm grateful to call you a friend. So thank you.
Thank you so much.